All right, good morning and welcome back to the Prima.Law podcast. I'm your host, Attorney James Betzold, and if the pandemic's driving you crazy, if you're under a stay-at-home order, you've been working from home all summer, I want you to know something, that if you live in the United States and you are somewhere in the northern region, summer's going to end soon, so get out and do something. So I actually took the whole family on the road in a responsible way. We got loads of hand sanitizer, masks, gloves, etc. And we found one of the counties in the great state of Michigan that has had like 10 total reported cases of COVID-19. And of course, my mother was dear enough to point out that yes, but that number's growing. It's not really growing in any meaningful way. But summer is going to end at some point, so we need to get outside, enjoy the outdoors, try not to lose our head. And so here we are. I'm going to be my own guest today. You know, I'm here sort of riding some trails on my new fat bike, getting some exercise like I haven't done in years, except for the last few weeks, I guess. And, you know, it's got me thinking and reflecting on my practice and some of the cases I've held. Held? No. Handled. Similar word, but different. All right, so without any further ado, this is the Prima.Law podcast. All right, welcome back. Again, like I said, I'm the host, and today I am going to be my own guest. So I was thinking about this one case I was handling. I don't need to give out the name, but suffice it to say, he's a gentleman from Burma, country of Burma, right? Well, I remember the song from Animaniacs. United States, Canada, Mexico, Panama, Haiti, Jamaica, Peru, Republic Dominican, Cuba, Caribbean, Greenland, El Salvador, too, Puerto Rico, Colombia, Venezuela, Honduras, Guyana. Well, where the heck is Burma? It's in the Southeast Asia. So we're over by like Thailand area. And anyway, so he is a part of a wave of refugees that are created when communists, I don't know, a bunch of other bad guys take over there, sending a bunch of their people, especially ethnic minorities. So if we're talking about minorities in Burma, something I knew nothing about, there's a number of different ethnic minority groups, and one of those is the Chin. We call them the Burmese Chin. Anyways, he became a refugee. They send a lot of those refugees to Thailand, if I'm not mistaken. Of course, you can tell I'm doing this story without any of my notes. I really am just thinking here in the woods. So, anyways, from Thailand, joins a refugee camp, is processed there. We welcome him with open arms here in America, where he stays. Never becomes a U.S. citizen, but does obtain his green card, right? After you're a refugee and you enter the U.S. as a refugee under the refugee program, it's essentially like you're given asylum here, right? Same deal. In fact, to request asylum, you got to prove you're a refugee. Well, he was a refugee. He had all the documentation for it. He officially was one. And, you know, sort of keeps going with his life as a kid. Unfortunately for the dad here, the Burmese Chin guy, he develops an alcohol problem. So, like a severe alcohol problem. And in the police reports associated with his case, when they find him, he's got something like 0.48 or 0.5 blood alcohol content. And you're probably rolling your eyes, thinking I'm lying. I can go look this up and show you. That's what the police report said. This guy was super drunk, and it was like a normal thing for him. Well, if any parent knows, you can't leave 2-year-olds unsupervised and just get hammered all the time, because they end up doing something dumb, because they're 2-year-olds, they have no concept. And eventually, if the child is lucky, the police get called. the kid doesn't have any other parents, so he ends up getting sent to one of the religious family services in the area, and he's placed with the temporary foster parents. Starts to thrive, right? Things get better for the kid, so that's really good. And the court starts looking at a plan for reunification. They're going to start with visitation, and then typically what happens is, if the court finds it's possible, if dad has some form of rehabilitation, if he's getting better, and if it's recommended by the social worker from these organizations or from the state, and they start to reunify. Now, reunification's great, but like I said, dad's got a ground of removal against it, so he ends up getting picked up by DHS. Kid is still in foster care. When I say DHS, I mean Immigration and Customs Enforcement, right? In this case, really doing their job, because that's what they're told to do. And so he gets arrested and sent to the Calhoun County Correctional Facility, where DHS rents a bunch of beds, right? So they have immigration detainees kept there. Family calls me. I take a look at the situation, say, you know what, there's probably a couple things we can do. But if you're a removal attorney and you do any sort of removal work, you must know you need to go talk to the client, because the family doesn't know everything. They might think they know everything. It may look like a straightforward case. You quote them a price associated with the difficulty you gauge in the case. And then you go meet the client and it's all sideways, right? It's harder, there's more things involved. Maybe there's a ground of removal that you didn't anticipate or know about because you haven't seen the court paperwork yet. Or because there's stuff that the client's embarrassed about, and so they've never shared it with their family, and the family never found out. So you always have to be careful about that. So you always go meet the client. Well, I went to go meet the client, and I think on a scale of like 1 to 10, his English skills were probably a 2. And the only reason I say a 2 is because there were times when he could understand me. Although most of the time, probably north of 80% of the time, he couldn't understand me. And I couldn't understand him, especially, right? I mean, I don't speak Burmese Chin, and not many other people do either. So we start asking, who was your attorney? Okay, did they have a translator for you? Yeah. What did the translator say? I don't know. When we were talking about the the criminal court case, right? So then we go on to, all right, had a court proceeding, and allegedly you didn't understand what was going on. And it seemed like he didn't, because he was very surprised that he would get in trouble at all for something like that. Cultural differences, I guess, or just sort of ignorance of the way of life here. And he also straight up couldn't communicate with me very well, right? He was able to tell me that he's got this asylum case. He showed me his paperwork. That brought me up to speed. That plus what his family told me, I was starting to get it. Well, when you're looking at removing someone from the United States, you can't just, 20% success rate in communication is just not acceptable. So I told him, look, you've got this asylum case. You're not a sympathetic client. You're going to have literally, I'm going uphill now, right? It's an uphill battle. So, and I don't always tell this to people, right? If they've got a case, maybe a naturalization or something like that, and they seem confident, and they seem super fluent in English, we do a consult, we go over the basis. I'll tell them, look, if you want to hire me, this is my cost. If you don't want to hire me, awesome. I hope we gave you some good information today. We're here if you need help. Of course, for a fee. We send them on their way. We're friends, right? And there's plenty of people. And in fact, the person I bought this bike from, I can show you the bike in a minute. One of those cases, right? I go to the bike shop. As I'm picking up the bike, he says, "Hey, so are you related to that Betzold attorney?" I said, "Yeah, that's me." He said, "Oh, we did a phone consult some years ago about my wife. She's here now. It's awesome." Yeah, it was hard to do. Fantastic. Everybody's happy. Right? There's plenty of other work for me to do. I see my job as to find the people who want my help and need my help, and to provide that service at a high level. So, this was a case like any other immigration court case. If you're going through it without an attorney, that's not a good idea, especially with the speed at which stuff is changing, especially with asylum, especially with this president, especially with a whole new slew of judges that we're getting at the BIA and at the immigration court level. And there's judges in the BIA now who are former members of FAIR, F-A-I-R. Go Google it. They're connected to, oh shoot, what's his name? John Titon, some idiot up in Petoskey. I will claim Petoskey is my hometown. This guy is a dentist there. Super white supremacist. Used his money to fund different organizations, including FAIR, to keep America white again. So, those are our immigration judges now, right? People who were leaders of that group who care nothing about alleviating the cause of the poor, the oppressed and the afflicted, persecuted, those in danger of their life. No, they care about the shade, on average, of America's population skin, because they believe in the supremacy of the white race. It just makes me sick. So that's what you're up against. All right, so let's get back to our buddy, Mr. Burma. We'll call him Mr. Burma. That's where he's from. I have a feeling like I'm going to get lost in the woods on this trail here. There's things that turn off to the left and right. I'm here jabbering away, blab in my mouth. We're already 13 minutes into this, and I'm not paying attention to where I'm going. I hope my GPS will work. All right, so back to Mr. Burma. We're talking in the jail. He's in his orange jumpsuit, and I'm trying to explain to him that, yeah, dude, you need a lawyer. You need to hire me for this. What you're doing here is huge. Not only do we need to mount a defense against something that is, in most people's minds, indefensible, but we need to do it quick, because you got a hearing coming up, and I haven't been paid. Now, he looks at me. Again, I'm not sure if he understood me completely, but he tells me very matter-of-factly, in words that I apparently understood, "Okay, no thanks. I'm just going to do this on my own. I'll be fine, thanks." I was like, "You're not going to be fine. You can do it on your own, but I want you to understand, you're not going to be fine. And when this goes sideways for you, here's what you need to know. You need to know really well the word appeal. And you need to say yes when they ask you if you want to appeal. Yes, and then you come find me, okay, buddy?" Okay, smiles, we're gone, I'm out of there. And he goes to hold his individual hearing. All right, now I'm going to share a little bit of information about just sort of the detention center. In the United States, there's a bunch of different immigration detention centers. Some of them are dedicated to detaining only immigrants, right? Some of them are private jails that get contracts and funding for holding immigrants. The least, statistically speaking, the least dangerous population of people, and they're held in prisons, right? So, under the law, Many of them have to be held under law. There's something called mandatory detention, where if you commit certain enumerated crimes, there's no bond for you while your hearing's going on. Even if it's been years since it happened and they're just catching up to you because they found your record in their books or something. But they're held there. So in our case here in Michigan, the detention center we were always visiting was in Battle Creek, Michigan, in the county of Calhoun. So we have the Calhoun County Correctional Facility, and the Department of Homeland Security pays tons of money. I think it probably actually funds darn near the whole thing. And they've got an ICE officer there, and then the sheriffs there are the ones in charge of housing and detaining the prisoners. And I mean, I know we've got a lot of attorneys listening to this to the show, probably watching me in a non-landscape format today. I wonder if I can change that. Anyways, as an attorney, you know, you want to go and be professional and be like, hey, officer, how you doing? I'm here to visit my client. And in Calhoun, they were always pretty decent with me. The sheriff's officers were. We had a couple others who were straight up DHS employees, ICE employees, and they were just a-holes. There's no nice way to say it. They were cruel to the people that they detained. They had zero class, zero tact, and you could tell they hated their damn job. Who could blame them for hating their job? Anyways, no fun situation. So I typically would visit at night, right? I do my office work during the day, do my consults during the day, and when we get some visits down there, I typically will pick an afternoon, evening, drive down there. It's an hour and a half from where I'm at. And let's make a night. Go pick up some donuts, bring in the box of donuts, give it to the sheriff's officers there, who are always fairly happy to see me. They're always very polite to me. I appreciate that. I don't really do detained work much anymore. Actually, I do zero detained work, and I've been a lot happier not doing it. You know, I'm good at it, but it's never something where you're like, alrighty, let's wake up and go get verbally abused by the ICE officer. Alrighty, let's go wake up and go to immigration court, where detained cases are typically tougher because they have some underlying criminal offense with it. So they're not always sympathetic. Their family doesn't always understand. Like I said before, the family doesn't even always know why their family member's in jail. And you want to be like, look, he raped a girl. But that's not really how it plays out. I think ethically you could do that. I think ethically you could say he was convicted of raping a minor, and they might be surprised to not believe you. That is public information, so I don't think that's a client confidence. But tact-wise, the client is there telling you they don't know, and I don't want you to tell them. So, oh, look at this. Break in here. No? Bugs on it. So anyways, I don't know, I've been a lot happier focusing my practice on other areas, but I still love, reflecting on cases that we've handled. If there were a truly sympathetic case, maybe I would take it. All right. So I didn't have my GoPro with me last time, but I want you to see how nice this looks here. We are at a very special spot here in the woods. And it just looks so nice. You gotta see it in 4K like this. So here we go. On a beautiful morning like this, what a treat. Riding the woods, talking about some fun cases we handled. Look at that. Going straight down there. This beautiful, beautiful view. I hope I don't drop my phone. Look at that. Sun is just waking up. This reminds me of Horseshoe Bend. over in Grand Canyon. Hope I don't do anything silly and slip here. It'd be awful. Have it all on GoPro too. Oh, this is like the foremost lookout position here. Look at that river. It's a beautiful river. Here, some pine tree. Someone should really cut down this pine tree. It's really in the way. Probably kind of hard to get to. I think you would need like a rope and a chainsaw. Knock that sucker over, blocking the view. All right, that's good. We're gonna go back up here. Sort of see where we came in there. We're in this nice little grove of trees here all by myself, and someone pointed this out the other day. They have chained this very nice picnic table to this very tiny tree. Apparently people were stealing it. This here, apparently someone had stolen this grill before, or a grill like it. So they cemented it in even harder. And if I'm not mistaken, these initials here are of my uncle. Look at that. It's hilarious. And it's so funny, the way people work together out here is, everybody knows my uncle apparently. And so they were talking about, well, you know, someone stole the grill up there. He talked to someone at the county. They're like, well, tell you what, just go buy a grill. Here's some money. Go buy a grill. Go get some cement. Take your wheelers up there. Install it. And we'll be good. Not paying for his time, right? Just like, here, buddy, go take this and do it and fix it. And they did. So there's his initials for all time to be engraved in the cement. And here's a grill where we can come and bring some food. Okay, so here's what we're riding today. So if you're watching me and you're watching this video, you've seen me with a little bit of a bumpy ride. That's because we're going on some... I mean, this is technically a dirt road. I guess what we were on up there, I can show you later, is more of a rock road because it's not gravel. It's big chunks of rock, and we're working our way up here. All right, so this is you know, my new bike. It's certainly not the fanciest of all bikes, but it is very fancy to me. I've never had a bike this nice, to be honest. Typically we go to Walmart and get a bike there, but this I think we finally earned this. Look at the fat tires on this thing. There we go. Now we're recording again. All right, so I'm back. I figured out I'm just going to go the way I came because it looks like the other road's going to take me either into Wisconsin or further away from my goal and closer to a real road, which with these tires we don't want to be on right now. We want to give this the full workout here. So where were we? We were talking about just, for me, sort of the reason we stopped taking detained cases, I guess. I talked about that. And let's go back to our main storyline here, right? Mr. Burma. So Mr. Burma had a family member who then came to us, right? So he does his hearing. Family member comes to us. Family member sits down, meets with us. Says, this is the deal. He did this by himself. And now he's getting ordered removed, right? Lost his hearing. And, on a side note, in front of a judge that by all means should have granted him some relief. No, would have granted him some relief if it were possible, right? One of these rare judges, I think, that got hired under the Obama administration, not under the Trump administration, and who used to be an immigration attorney instead of a white nationalist. So, here we go. Family member comes to me, sits down in my office. oh, he's getting deported, we don't want him to get deported, he'll get killed if he goes back. And if you think about it, after all, he was a refugee from that country. Sending him back might not be the best idea, even years later. People hold grudges. Certain ethnic minorities are not always treated the same way, and he was in the middle of the process of reunification with his child. So, for me, I think, this could be a case. This could be a case we could do. So I quote a price that's ridiculously underpriced for a retainer, right? One of the cases where I just regret not collecting more up front, because I never saw anything else on that case, and you're going to find out in a minute here what all went into it. So, we have to file an appeal. He's detained. He knows he's going to stay detained during the appeal, which maybe the BIA will work a little more quickly on because he is detained. Maybe it's still going to take a year. Maybe it's still going to take 2 years. So I get his case. I get the whole file. And what happens, I guess, when you file the BIA appeal is you file the notice that, hey, we're going to appeal. And the BIA is like, okay, cool, here's the... Well, BIA stands for Board of Immigration Appeals, all right? And the BIA says, cool, appeal whatever you want. Here's a full copy of the transcript, the record, documents, blah, blah, blah. Which I didn't have, and my guy didn't have, because he did it himself. So, we get a record of all the proceedings, and then it's a matter of reading that whole record, a transcript of everything that happened at the hearing. There's bears in these woods. Just heard a loud snap. You read the whole record of proceedings, and what? You look for anything that looks like it was wrong or happened incorrectly or was maybe rushed by the court or overlooked, or maybe a motion that was denied by the court, some right that was violated of the client's. Because the goal here is one of two things. One, it's to get the court, the appeals court, to say, yeah, you're right, you should have been granted relief, you win. Or, more commonly, oh yeah, this thing happened that wasn't quite right, go back to the trial court and either present your whole case again, depending on what it was, or present limited evidence on this topic and the judge needs to find specifically on these factors or whatever. So I'm going through the whole transcript and it looks tight. I mean, one thing that happens in removal cases that I loathe is the government or ICE will get onto some minute detail, right? For example, all right, you said that the first time that you were beat by this ethnic cleansing mob or military or whatever, that you went and you hung out at your uncle's house. Is that true? Yeah. Okay. When you first met with ICE, or when you were being processed in the refugee camp on your application, you said you were at your brother's house. You're a damn liar. You're just lying. All this is lies. You just lied to get your refugee status. You're lying now. Blah, blah, can't keep your story straight. And mind you, this is happening in English and Burmese, not Burmese Chin, which is different. So, as an attorney, maybe you've seen cases where it's like, yeah, squint. You know what? Blur just a little bit. The whole story's consistent. So, did you ask him if it was his uncle or brother here? Yeah. Is it different from what he said before? Yeah. But so what? So what? That means his whole story's a lie? How do you know he's even lying? Maybe you should and that's why you have an attorney. Your attorney's there and can cross-examine and get that cleared up right away. Well, instead, he was found to be incredible or unbelievable. Literally, someone that could not be believed And therefore, nothing else merited any discussion overall. Plus, the record, his record, plus the law equals a removal order. And, that's, again, why the family called me. All right, so we're doing that. Going through the record, I see these things come up. And I'm like, and here's the deal. When I'm working with a client, I will represent them. I will put forward their best case in front of the court. But we can't, and you can't, and an attorney cannot shy away from the difficult questions that we know are going to be coming, right? Why did you say that? Why did you say uncle instead of this? And sometimes, and this is very, delicate, because if you're dealing with someone who's a victim of abuse, maybe they have PTSD, extreme anxiety, extreme depression, mood disorders, things like that. You want to be sure you're not re-traumatizing the person when you ask these questions. But this guy felt like I could say, hey, so what's the deal? The answer here was inconsistent. He said, no, I never said that. I never said that. That must have been the interpreter. I never said I went to my uncle's house. He said, yeah, at court, they all got angry. I didn't know why. I'm there telling the truth. Everyone gets mad and I got ordered removed, ordered deported. All right, this is worth a couple pictures here. This is, I don't know, is this the first podcast? It's certainly my first podcast episode where we're going through a logging trail. I said it was a logging road, right? And the reason is, because in this forest, look at the size of these trees. We got some very mature trees here, ready for harvesting. And that is what's being done. It's literally a logging road. In fact, I can sort of show you. This is still pretty easy terrain. This is still really nothing. You see it's more dirt than anything at this point. I'll show you the rocks in a little bit, but logging, and I'm not running for office, okay? But logging is an important practice, especially here in Michigan. It's managed, right, by the DNR. It's managed by the state. And you get trees that are this size, and you get some undergrowth and whatnot. And it gets harvested from time to time. And it's a source of revenue for the county, for the state, and a source of resources for building houses in the woods, right? Vote for me, President 2020. Just write in my name. Attorney James Betzold. Independent. Oh man, so pretty out here. Gentle wind today, not too many bugs. All this scenery, we got some sort of a tractor device over there. All right, let's strap this back in here. So, like I said, bad Siri. Bad Siri. Okay, we're back. Still moving? Yeah, we're still rolling. All right, so, I confront him about it. And time after time, every inconsistent thing that he'd said, how long were you in prison? How long were you in jail? And even the words prison and jail, which in the U.S. are distinct. Well, there's also distinct words for that in Burmese Chin as well. Oh man, I'm a little tired, but this is very fun. I'm thinking now that, because I know he was from Burma, everything in our pleadings and court records and what was Burma. I think now, is it Myanmar? Yeah, might be. Again, there was some sort of civil unrest there. A bunch of minorities were getting slaughtered, and so he was a refugee. All right, so what comes next? I notice all these inconsistencies. So we go to like, yeah, everything that was inconsistent in the record. All the reasons the judge said he was getting deported. And we found that there were a large number that were literally translator issues, right? He didn't have a live translator in court. It's not like one of these nice court situations where everybody's there, everyone's really professional and knows what everybody's saying. No, Half the time in immigration court, it is quite the opposite, where you're struggling to find an interpreter who can communicate in the same dialect that the respondent does. Just fixing my shoelaces there. So, for example, you got a lot of clients from Guatemala. They might not speak Spanish. Their first language may be Mam or Quiche or some other. They say dialecto. I think dialecto just means dialect, not any particular language. But there's a number of them. So I don't speak Mam. I speak Spanish, and their family probably speaks Spanish, so we communicate at some very basic level. And when necessary, get an interpreter. But for court stuff, no, they need the specialist there. So we do that. We go through everything. We find all these problems, start writing them down. Now, we get into the nitty-gritty of linguistics. Like I said, I don't speak Burmese or Burmese Chin, and now apparently there had recently been, like recently in the last 20 or 30 years, some standardized way of writing it that was published online, so I could actually go to the online Burmese or Burmese Chin dictionary and copy the word and show, look, the translator used the word blah, and they should have used the word blantan. And the difference between that is one is jail and one is prison. So when they said this, he said, no, I never went to prison. I only went, because he only went to jail, right? Jail typically is where you go right before court, less than a year detention. Prison is commonly a year or more after you received your sentence, at least in that country at that time. So there were all sorts of problems there. And then the judge's like, well, whatever, you're lying. Fine. So we filed our appeal. I prepared the whole thing. Really well done. Get it all filed. Super proud of myself. And I'm like, all right. Now we just wait on the BIA. My job's done. Did the best I could here. But I get this nagging feeling. So this segment of the show is going to be that nagging feeling. That nagging feeling says, yeah, you think you've got a strong case. Yeah, technically it's strong. Yeah, it might work, but what's the end result? End result is, okay, the judge thinks he's credible, but still he's got all these other bad issues, and so he's going to probably get his case denied because he's, again, not super sympathetic when it comes to the different factors you look at for cancellation of removal, things like that. So there we are. So there we are, and I've got this nagging feeling like, you know what, let's take another look at that criminal record. Now, this was after Padilla had become law. So, Padilla versus Kentucky? That doesn't sound right. It's the Padilla case, anyway, where you have a constitutional right, or a respondent has a constitutional right to be advised of the immigration consequences of a guilty plea, right, or of conviction. So, if they're never advised of that right, they have ineffective assistance of counsel. So we looked at his record, and as I'm speaking right now, I don't remember if they have an attorney. They probably did. It was probably a court-appointed attorney who doesn't know anything about immigration. And the court certainly doesn't know anything about immigration, because all this went off, his whole case went through without a hitch, without any consideration for the immigration consequences. So, is reunification a good idea? We're going to ignore everything that has to do with immigration and just say yes, right? Well, I'm looking at it. I said, I wonder if there's an opportunity here. I wonder if we can make that conviction disappear. Because if you've never been convicted of child abuse or neglect, well, then you're not removable anymore. Even if we know that you were convicted, but then it was undone. If it was undone for a constitutional reason because of lack of effective assistance of counsel, because you weren't advised of the immigration consequences, then there's a possibility there. So we go and talk to him. And I'm sure I'd asked him this before too. Hey, when you were in the criminal court, what happened there? I mean, did you they tell you that you were going to certainly be deported if you pled guilty to that charge, which is what he ended up doing. He ended up pleading. That's what they do in neglect cases here. And no, nobody would have told me I would be deported. I thought I would just plead, go back about to my life, eventually get back to my kid, and we'd be okay. And, well, that is exactly what Padilla, I want to say versus Kentucky, is about. That if you're not fully advised, that's ineffective. Here we go. We're going through the terrain here now. Not fully advised, and you get the right to go back and withdraw that guilty. So it was kind of a tricky situation at the time because there was really no official state vehicle for it. So you had to formulate this motion, talk to the prosecutor, and in this case, we had to sort of get everybody else on board, the social worker. And file this motion, go to court, go in front of the judge. Client appears via TV from detention in Battle Creek. And motion gets granted. We did a lot of work on it. We briefed it really well. We talked to everybody involved, and everyone agreed that since he had already served any jail time and he was already making good progress, he was on the up and up, it would be okay, and everybody really wouldn't mind if he just went back and changed his plea to disturbing the peace instead of neglecting his child. And from there, now that's fine and dandy. We knew that was a big win, but we still have this way. Still have the issue that he's detained and there's this pending appeal. So we file a notice to the BIA saying, hey, is it the BIA? Maybe we filed that one directly with the court on a motion to reopen or something where we said, look, I don't remember. Check your procedures on that. It was a little while ago. But you file an update with the court and essentially saying, look, hey, they're not removable anymore because they had that vacated because of constitutional defect. And so now you need to let them go and dismiss this whole case and open that removal order, which they did. And so we're all really happy about that. It's a pretty good case. And then you go down to write the bill and you realize how many extra days of non-stop research and writing and following up and court hearings. And you prepare the bill. And when I started this episode, I told you, look, I wish I had charged more at the beginning. Here's why. Because I never saw another dime from that teeny tiny retainer I got for taking the BIA appeal. And it wasn't a lot. It was probably 5 hours worth of work that I had charged for. And we ended up, like I said, putting in over 40 of just like pure, hardcore research and writing and defense. And, crazy. It's a lot of uncompensated work, but I learned a lot on the one hand. And on the other hand, I'd like to think that at some point, there's a little boy who knows his dad, and his dad's still in his life after 2 years of age, because we did that. And I think, we got some bugs here, I think, ethically speaking, you can't just, in the middle of the case, say, you know what, I can't do anything else for you, and the clock is running, unless you pay me this amount of money. So when we're in the middle of it like that, we like to just focus on doing the job. And it all happens so quickly that if you were on a regular billing cycle anyway, you're not going to have, you're going to have a bill to update the client on in the meantime. And when we showed the bill to the family member who signed the contract, they were like, nope, it's too much. Bye. And they walked out and I never saw them again. So, I hope that guy turned his life around. I hope he was able to get some sobriety. I hope there's a little boy who has his dad and other family members. Just put that out into the universe and hope that karma pays us back at some point. Or even doesn't. Who cares? You know what? We did our job. We executed our legal and ethical responsibility to defend our clients zealously with all forms of relief possible. Yeah, they couldn't and didn't and wouldn't pay, but that's sort of ancillary. You take enough cases, you handle enough cases, you do a good job, your reputation grows, and you're blessed either way. So I just wanted to share that story with you. That was one that had sort of been on my mind. Hopefully maybe it provides you some comfort or guidance. Especially if you're still taking detained cases. Those are some of the hardest. Hopefully if you do that, you live near the detention center and you live near the immigration court. I think that's the only way to do it. All right, let's see here. I think I can show you. Here we go. Here we've got we're getting into the hard rocks again here now. Let me show you what we're dealing with. All right, we're back on the road again. I sort of showed you what it looks like, what I'm dealing with. So if it's a little bouncy, you know why. And if my voice vibrates a little bit, you know why too. But just out getting some morning exercise. I've never been the type of person that like go out, especially on a bicycle. I always thought it was like literally a futile exercise. Because I could just get in a car and drive. I could get on a motorcycle and drive, and there's a motor there, and that's technology, and I'm a human being. But turns out our bodies need exercise to alleviate stress, maintain our health. I don't know, probably blood pressure, probably circulation, probably all that stuff. You get, I guess, some serotonin, and maybe you find that you don't need that same amount of caffeine in the morning or in the afternoon. So you can sleep better at night. Well, before we go, let me share a couple other things with you. Now, if you are an immigration attorney, we've always told you can use Prima.Law. We're changing the name up to Prima.Law. It's just easier, it's shorter. Everyone just calls it Prima anyway, because nobody is certain how to pronounce fasci. Truth be told, I don't think anybody knows if there is a right way to say fasci, or fasci, or fasci. It's not fascia because that's a different word. Prima facie means at first sight, or a legally significant case, where you have all the elements met to meet your burden of proof. That's a prima facie case of criminal negligence. That's a prima facie case of murder. That's a prima facie case of rape and mayhem. Two separate offenses, of course. Well, name changes aside, Prima.Law is the immigration attorney's best friend when it comes to case management, forms. You got to autofill forms to maintain efficiency. You got to gather information from your client through questionnaires, checklists. How about a checklist that you can send to your client, and your client goes on their phone, looks at your list, takes pictures of the documents they need, upload it to that link, to that button that you've given them in that whole checklist, and that goes straight into your case management system for you. How about that? How cool is that? So now you're dealing with text messages, you're dealing with some bumps in the road here, like in any law practice. You're dealing with SMS, you're dealing with messages to your client, you're gathering all of that information into the right case for your client, and then what do you need? Well, what you need is obvious. You need a way to autofill those forms, generate those addendums, and compile all of the forms, addendums, exhibits into one comprehensive, I don't know if it's comprehensive, but into one PDF where you can set options for Exhibit sheets. You can automatically include exhibit sheets, starting with whatever exhibit you want. So if you don't want exhibit sheets between your forms, fine, don't put them there. But it's very easy to say, hey, starting with exhibit number whatever, add exhibit sheets. You can add page numbers in your footer. So you can say, hey, starting at this document, I want my page numbering to start. It becomes very easy because then you generate the table of contents. And once you generate the table of contents, you get the list of everything that's in your case by exhibit number. And you can see the page numbers as well, attorneys. That sounds kind of lame. I don't want to say attorneys because I'm an attorney. I don't want to feel like I'm talking down to you, even though literally I'm looking down at the camera right now. But if you do any removal defense, like for our buddy, Mr. Burma, you know that when you're getting those exhibits together, there's always something you forgot. And then what do? You're like, well, I got to get this thing in the mail. I got these extra 2 or 3 exhibits I just found, or somebody sent me last minute, or the client or their family sent to me last minute. I want to include them, but that would mean that I've got to reorganize all my exhibits, add more page numbers, and if you're doing that manually, it is a pain and a waste of your valuable time. So, using our package assembly feature, automate that. You get the page numbers, exhibit sheets, exhibit numbers, comprehensive table of contents that includes all of that. You can even drag and drop, when using Firefox, your letterhead image in there, and you got your exhibit package ready to go. This is also great for I-130s, petitions that you send to USCIS, adjustments of status, to help you stay organized. And you may say, but Attorney Betzold, I heard once that USCIS just throws away the exhibit sheets. I heard that they just throw away any table of contents or cover letter. First of all, I think that'd be a violation of the Freedom of Information Act. They're supposed to keep those. Second of all, if that's true, who cares? You're not doing it for them. You're doing it for yourself and for your client, and to put together the best organized case that you can. Because you're gonna have to look at it again at some point. And when you're going through it and you're sitting at the USCIS adjustment interview, or you're sitting in immigration court, you're gonna wanna know exactly where the birth certificate is, because that USCIS officer may, for the hell of it, say to you, where's your birth certificate? I don't see your birth certificate in here. And it's always fun to be the attorney who's there that says, no problem, here's another copy. Boom! Turned right to it, found it before he did. And then he or she will say, typically they will say, oh, never mind, I found it. But you will have already showed them who's the boss and who takes initiative in that case. All right, let's see what we got here. Sometimes a little bit of a rock hound. It's just a rock. All right, here we go. What am I gonna find? Gold? No. Am I gonna find iron in this rock? Probably there's some iron. It's very reddish. And I have found copper embedded in a rock. It looked like we're finding copper. Pretty neat. Oh, look here. I don't mean to get off track here, but this looks like half a heart, and there's some neat colors in there. I don't know if you can tell with the colors here today. All right. Let's get back on the road. So, package assemblies for you. Now, look. Many of you know that my wife and I, Angela, Angelita, to you, she's probably Mrs. Betzold, have a company, Bella Legal Assistance, and we're doing some work for a client. One of our Bellas was doing work for a client, and they were just raving about the package assembly feature. And this client of theirs had previously used a notary, right? You pay them like $50 and they screw up your case and you might get deported. Well, they screwed up this person's case. The person went to an attorney, yay, to get their work done the right way. And their client commented to, the assistant, you guys are doing such a great job. I can totally tell that this is worth it. I know that it was thousands of dollars instead of hundreds of dollars, but I really appreciate the communication and the fact that you're sending me copies of the documents that you're sending to the government. because when you send your client that packet, it looks so great and it's so organized. And when they want to go and review their forms on their own or show their friends what good work their attorney does for them, they're going to show them that packet. And they're going to see how organized it is and easy to go through. With those exhibit sheets, again, you turn right to what you need. All right, that brings me to one more thing we can talk about on this rocky ride home. But I tell you what, this bike is handling it like a champ. I could never go on this road safely or with any form of efficiency on my trusty Schwinn. The other thing is Bella Legal Assistance. So here's the deal. We're dealing with a pandemic lockdown situation. They say it's not a second wave, but it's certainly an unmanaged outbreak at this point, right? Nobody knows what's going to happen with elections. No one knows what's going to happen with business. They're talking about a second business bailout, which you should probably apply for because you're probably going to need it. And what? I mean, you have to restructure your firm. Probably. You probably have to restructure your firm because you're not living in the same world you lived in back in February. Back in February, you can have your U.S. assistants. Everything's going reasonably well. Money's coming in. Clients are happy. And all that shuts down. Your biggest expense as an attorney is, well, it should be you, first of all, right? That's an acceptable expense. But the other largest expense you have is your staff. When you hire a U.S. Employee, you are paying not only their salary, remember, but you're paying additional federal withholdings, you're paying taxes on everything, right? And when money doesn't come in like it used to, you feel the pinch for sure. You pay for training. You're paying for software. You're paying, just think about it. Adobe Acrobat, I don't know, I guess I might be getting a super deal on it or something. It's like $16.50 per license is what we pay for Adobe right now. Per user, per month. Okay, so that on top of your case management, on top of your whatever other software you use. Plus, if you have a US-based employee, you've got their computer. You got to have a good computer for them to use. You have to pay for email hosting. You have to pay for a desk for them to sit at. Services that they need. Maybe you find it hard to keep up with the competition, and maybe your staff is demanding things like you pay their health care, that you pay their some other benefits, things like that. Well, we've cracked the code. For years, our firm has been using remote virtual assistant. I'm even saying virtual assistant because they're not virtual. They're a real person. It's a real person trained in immigration law, fluent in English and Spanish, assigned to you to work during designated hours. So this isn't like it's not a renta paralegal service, although we do have a case-by-case service as well. But if you look at the numbers and you do more than one case a week, it just makes sense to have someone part or full-time. Okay? And maybe that means we need to adjust our pricing structure and charge more. But for the time being, if you have your assistant work on more than one case a week, essentially, cash flow-wise, right, if we're talking cash flow purposes, it's worth it to have a dedicated assistant. Now we're going to stick it right here. You can probably hear my brakes. So, what do? We handle the hiring, we handle the firing, we handle the HR issues, we handle the HR compliance. All of our employees, all of our staff for Bella Legal Assistance are part of a legally organized company, right, in South America. In Colombia, where we're from, where my wife is from. I'm not from there. We grew up, but she's from there. And we go there a lot now when we're not under quarantine orders for that purpose. We have an office there. They work from the office. During pandemic times, some of them do work from home. We provide them with computers. We make sure that they have internet connectivity. We make sure that they are fully compliant with Colombian law. And let me tell you, Colombian law has a lot of I's to dot and T's to cross. When dealing with employees, you pay like an employer-based retirement plan, government health care. The employer pays for transportation to work. The company has to pay for all sorts of things, and it's really fun and gratifying to be able to have these people working for us. And it's a situation where they're very happy. This is their career, and it's something that we're building, and they're building, and we're building a really good reputation for ourselves. You can see on our Facebook page, I know Angela posts frequently the wonderful things that people are saying about us. Now, back when we started, were there a couple rocky moments? Yes, just like the rocky moments, But, we learn, we adjust, and like any business, even a law firm, right? We make sure that the quality of the product to the clients is high, and that everybody follows the system of ethics which bind the attorney as well, as far as confidentiality, honesty, zealous representation, communication. All those things our Bellas know about and are trained on. And the other thing that they're trained on is what your clients will love the most, and that is communication. You'll love it the most. You'll love having someone that during their assigned hours you can reach out and say, hey, let's meet, let's go over this. I've got these cases that have been pending. Let's go and review those. Let's go make sure these cases are all up to date. Let's gather the documents from these other remaining cases. And by using Prima.Law and our brand new beautiful note interface, our task interface, and a phone call interface, it's easy to maintain communication and collaboration between your own team. So, where does that leave us here? You're looking, and you know what? Let me share this. We had somebody contact us, and they were like, you know what? The person who was doing our NVC cases, that was their forte. They just left. We need someone to help us. We've had attorneys say, look, I'm recovering from cancer, and my firm's a little bit of a mess right now. I need help organizing stuff and getting on top of my caseload. We've had an attorney who called us and said, hey, look, I'm going through one of these other health or business crises, and I've got a backlog of EOIR cases that I need to get up to date on, and I'm just having a challenging time doing that. Can you guys help me today? And, we have been very willing to go to a lot of extremes to help our customers. Because one, we care. We're part of the immigration profession to begin with. Two, we've been through it. We've had staff who quit on short notice or who we need to let go on short notice. And we know the stress that can bring. And so we also know how to help get you out of that. Or maybe, we've had other clients who everything's going great and they're not having any crises, but they want to expand and they want to do it cost effectively. So they call and say, hey, I need 1 or 2 people to work part-time or full-time during these hours, handling these things. If you have anyone ready, we help them too. So as you're building your practice again, maybe rebuilding, maybe just making some adjustments, keep that in mind. Bella Legal Assistance. Find us online at bella.legal. If you don't know who I am, look, add me as a friend on Facebook. I can give you an invitation to our attorney group. There's some resources there as well. We're in this together. And just like I'm going uphill right now, the practice of immigration seems to be perpetually uphill. So, stay in the good fight as long as you can. I'm Attorney James Betzold. Have a great day.